So, I want to talk about 5 ways that you can make your value propositions more real for the people that are selling your product and for the prospects that are encountering your company. So, the first one is you need a source of truth that your employees can turn to when they want to learn more about the value propositions. One of the biggest problems that I see with companies is sellers and marketers are spending too much time recreating messaging around value propositions because they just don't have that foundation created. So, you need a messaging framework that spells it out simply for them. It needs to be easy to find, it needs to be updated over time. And so that's the first tip. Number two is you need to be sharing relevant and timely stories about how the value propositions are being delivered to customers. What I like to recommend for founders and CEOs is every time that you have an all company stand up, whether it's bi weekly or once a month, make sure you're tying successes and wins back to the value propositions. So if you launched a new product, how is it ultimately making the value proposition more real? How is it strengthening the value proposition? If you won a big deal, if you closed a customer that you've been trying to close, what value proposition ultimately were they most interested in? If you saw success with an existing customer, how can you tie it back to the value proposition? Number three is case studies that bring value propositions to life. When a lot of people create case studies, they wait for the story to unfold based on the interview that they have. And what I like to work with clients on is building that story ahead of time. So knowing exactly the value propositions that you want to surface in the case study based on what you know about the customer and their success with your product or your services, and then handpicking the right customer based on the value props that you need to make more real for people. So instead of waiting for that story to unfold, you're building that story ahead of time. You know exactly the value propositions that you want to ask them about. You know what needs to be done to educate around value propositions in that case study format. Number four is training and practice for the sellers. Your sales team needs time to understand your value propositions. They need time to practice communicating those value propositions to your different ICPs and your different personas. I think a lot of organizations get to the point where they believe that everybody knows the value propositions, but if you just spent a couple minutes going around the room talking to individual sellers, you probably find that that consistency is not there, or if it is there, it could be improved. So take time to train them on value propositions. You want them to have a good understanding of how to communicate the narrative behind the value propositions. So they should be able to understand what the customer is dealing with in terms of pain points, how the value propositions are going to help them, and what is ultimately delivered as a result of your work together and how it ties back to the value propositions. And then number five, the marketing team should be building and executing what I call value proposition education campaigns. So this is really important in order to make value propositions real outside of your organization and at the top of the funnel. You want to make sure that you're talking about value propositions in blog content, video content, social media content, paid ads, landing pages, email campaigns, anything that the marketing team is already working on. It's really helpful to plan a strategic campaign around value propositions. And it's not just talking about yourself, right? It's telling those stories that you're capturing from customers. It's talking about those wins. It's making your differentiation known in the marketplace by focusing on these value propositions that are easy for people to remember. Hope you're thinking about your value propositions this week and how you can make them more real, how you can strengthen them for your team, and also make them more intriguing for the people that you're ultimately trying to reach. All right, that's it for me. We'll talk another day.